Welcome one and all to the Hammer Territory podcast. I'll just go ahead and let you know it's going to be a mellowed down version of me today. Not feeling too well, but you know what makes you feel better, Stephen? A Braves victory. And that Braves were able to bounce back once again. Monday was a rare, forgettable performance. Some bad news, obviously, that you and Scott covered so well from earlier today, but we do have some good things to talk about. Some updated news on Drake Baldwin, which we'll get into in just a moment. But let's start off this show with the positive, and that was the Braves bouncing back and getting a victory over the Marlins, right back to 17 games over 500. And it was really impressive to see that even though they struggled early and they did well in the first inning, got down, this team was able to fight back and get a needed victory, and it was because of the offense once again.
What's up, buddy? So yeah, this is my second show today. Actually, Scott and I obviously did the Baldwin reaction this morning, or I guess it was around lunchtime. We did get an update. We'll go over that in a minute. But yeah, it was a nice bounce back win. Yesterday was just ugly. I mean, yesterday was probably the worst game they played all year, and you never know how those kind of games are going to linger, and not even just mentally or emotionally, but I mean sometimes physically. How's the pitching staff going to look? When you get just blasted like that, 12-0 on the first game of the trip, and they came out tonight, and I thought they responded well. I tell you the thing that I've loved to see this year, and this is probably the biggest difference I see from last year and the year before, is every time they have two or three games in a row where the offense isn't great, where it's kind of a string of games where the offense isn't great, they seem to always come out of it with a like 7 or 8 spot the next game. Like it's not something that's lingering for weeks and weeks like we saw in 25 and like we saw in 24. These like lulls for the offense are much shorter, and the team comes out and immediately puts up a 7 or 8 spot in a game and kind of makes you forget about the last 2 or 3 games that have happened where maybe they only scored 2 or 3 runs per game. That has been the most encouraging thing, and they did it again tonight. And it wasn't a perfect game offensively. They left a ton of runners on. Austin Riley maybe had the worst game of his career. He left like 1,000,000 runners on. They had base runners everywhere. They could have scored 20 runs in this game if they had hit better with runners in scoring position. But they were constantly giving themselves chances. Obviously, Ronnie's back in the leadoff spot. He was on base 4 times, I think, 3 or 4 times. I can't remember exactly what it was. Something like that. 3 times. Yeah, that's right. And so that helps a ton. Obviously, having him back just in general helps a ton. But yeah, it was a good bounce back from the offense, and that has been the most encouraging thing, is watching that side of the ball not linger in the valleys that we saw for weeks and weeks in the 2 seasons prior.
Yeah, it's good when you're not rolling out three of the 15 worst, offensive regulars, qualified offensive regulars, in the game, like we saw for much of the first half of last season. And the great thing about having a deep lineup is that when one of your best goes down, you see many step up. We saw it happen with Ronald when he went out, and now with Baldwin, who thankfully is going to be, spoiler alert, he's going to be out a bit shorter amount of time than, we may have initially speculated. The good thing is that many stepped up, and I think that that's what was the definition of today's game. You saw, Michael Harris return to form a bit. He had the single as well as the home run. Mauricio Debon, once again, I know it was a bit of a gift, but delivered with the bases loaded. Hassan Kim put together 2 good at bats to end the game. I know Austin Riley struggled, but like you said, Ronald got on, base 3 times. Overall, just a complete team victory. And I think that that's another thing as well, kind of to your point, we're seeing these complete team victories more often than anything. It's not one person taking over a game when we desperately needed to win. It's just consistently different names being able to contribute to victories. But the one other thing that I want to speak on to this is Martin Perez.
Yeah.
He constantly comes up. Every time he pitches, whether it's an inning in relief or putting together a good start today, the versatility of Martin Perez has come up huge once again for this team. And it shows that while some may be disappointed in the bigger investments like Jerks and Propar, Hassan Kim, and so on so far, the fact that he was able to back them up with inexpensive hits like Dominic Smith, Mauricio Dubon and Martin Perez. That's made all the difference in the world with both Dubon and Perez standing out tonight.
Yeah, Debon with 3 hits had been kind of in a lull. Um, Hassan Kim finally like stacked a couple of good at bats together at the end of the game. He kind of struggled early, made another error defensively. That we got to clean that part up. But yeah, it was good to see him stack some at bats. Matt Olson had a big double after Ronnie had led off the inning with a double to get the Braves closer. So yeah, it was more of a complete effort. It wasn't one guy just dominating the box score. The thing about Perez, I'll say this: it was a weird game. It was I'm not sure I've ever seen somebody give up 4 runs in 5 innings with 10 strikeouts in like 70 pitches. Like it was hyper efficient. They were very quick innings. He gave up the homer. It was really the first inning. He had a bad first inning, just couldn't get that third out in the first inning. And then really settled down, gave up 1 run the rest of the way. Again, struck out 10 guys, which I think I saw was a career high. At 35 years old, setting a career high is pretty cool. And listen, like what you have to keep in mind with Perez is he's your fifth starter. So if he goes 5 innings and gives up 4 runs like he did tonight, like that's okay. Like that's kind of what a fifth starter does. Like maybe not 4 runs, but like you kind of expect your offense to cover that up when your worst starter's on the mound. And Perez has been far from their worst starter. I mean, he's still got an ERA in the twos as we sit here today. So yeah, it was a fun game from Perez. It was cool to see Didier Fuentes pitch back-to-back games for the first time. First time we've seen that all year. Pitched last night's game, pitched tonight's game. I thought he looked good. And then they went Lee, Suarez, Iglesias to finish the game out. And the back of the bullpen just continues to be nails. It helped that the offense just kept tacking on runs. It wasn't a 1-run game, wasn't a 3-run game. It ended up being a 4-run game, which makes everybody's life easier. Yeah, it was just a nice bounce back win after a pretty miserable day at the park yesterday.
And that's another thing that I don't think is hit on enough about some of baseball's best offenses. Of course, you want to be among the best in baseball with runners in scoring position. That's been a big, big struggle for the Braves at times over the past couple of years. But also, what needs to be said is the offenses that can keep the onslaught going, keep creating those run scoring opportunities to where if you even can't convert them that often or you have a game where you struggle, the more chances you have, you're eventually going to break through. And that's exactly what the Braves did in this game. And that, again, reflects a full team effort. So the ability for this team to put together consistent at bats is light years ahead of where it was at times at 24 and 25. And you see why it's pretty easy for them to bounce back or not have to go through long stretches of offensive doldrums.
Yeah, and without Baldwin, obviously Acuna being back helps a lot, but without Baldwin, you need the others, right? Scott and I talked about this today. Like you need Ozzy to get hot again. You need Mike. It was really good to see Michael Harris have a good game, single and a homer. He'd struggled in May. Dubon, same thing. He had really struggled in May. They need to get Hassan Kim going. They need another right-handed bat. We're not going to do the Austin Riley thing again. We've done it a million times. I've said it, I don't know how many times on this podcast. I think Austin Riley and his slugging percentage might be the most important number for the team because when Austin is slugging the way you expect him to, then the offense is at times unstoppable. Like if Austin Riley had a normal Austin Riley game, like 2022 Austin Riley, the Braves would have scored 20 runs tonight. I mean, it's everything goes to a different level for this offense when Austin hits the way I know Austin can hit, but quite frankly, he hasn't hit in a long time. So, in a lot of ways, he's the X factor. But, even guys like Kim, Michael, Ozzy, Yaz, like those guys can help a lot by just contributing here and there. Dubon, same thing. So, yeah, it was good to see everybody step up as Baldwin goes down, Acuna comes back, and put 8 runs on the board.
But of course, it's always nice when you can get those homers, right? You're a big advocate of no offense beats the home run, and that's absolutely the case. Which brings us to a great time in this podcast, as it's now time for our daily dingers presented by FanDuel. And we're going to make it very simple, very quickly. We're going to go to the name that should stand out above all. That's Ronald Acuña Jr., right? He's back. He's back in the lineup. And one thing that stood out so far about Ronald Acuña Jr. this year, Stephen, we haven't seen the power. that much. And we would love to see that. That's what stands out. And he's in a ballpark where he's been arguably the most productive big leaguer who's ever played there. I think I saw this stat today from the great production team at Braves Vision. He has the highest average of anybody at Marlins Park with at least 200 plate appearances. He's due for a home run. He's in one of his favorite spots to hit. I would be willing to say he's due to have a big game, and I think that he should be the central figure in our Daily Digger segment. If you were going to go with money to homer over the next couple of games, it would be Ronald.
Yeah, I did think it was funny that Ronald's coming back against the Marlins. The guy's just got an incredible history against Miami. Had a really good first game back. Everybody remembers. I'll never forget. As long as I'm alive, I'll never forget his rookie year, where he hit 5 homers in a row, like 5 games in a row or something like that against Miami. All of them, half of them were like leadoff homers.
Yes.
It was one of the most fun things I've ever seen. Obviously, they threw at him after that, and that's kind of what started this feud. But yeah, he's back. With Baldwin down, Acuña's power. We haven't seen a lot of Ronald homers this year. We've seen a lot of balls that probably should have been homers. But he's been out for 3 weeks, and now he's back. And I am curious to see what the power looks like. He roped the ball for a double. It was like 109 miles an hour today. Good to see. One thing I noticed today was he was taking a lot of pitches. Looked very patient. I've said this before with Ronnie. You can tell he gets locked in when he starts really taking, a ton of quality pitches, like balls just off the plate. Every count he was in today was like a 3-2 count. He was making guys throw pitches. He wasn't chasing. And when he gets a pitch, he can really rip it. That's when Ronald's going. And I was really encouraged by that today. So I think Ronald's a good bet over the next 2 days to put one over the fence.
Absolutely. And the reason why we love to see Ronald moving over the fence is, again, that's one of the best sources of instant offense. And a reminder, the MLB season is in full swing, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to call your shot with Daily Diggers. Joining the action is easy. Just make your free pick on who is hitting a home run in the game. And if you're right, you'll get a profit boost to use on your next bet and a chance for extra winnings. It's just another reason why FanDuel is the home of home runs. Are you ready? Head over to FanDuel.com/podcast to get started. That's FanDuel.com/podcast to opt in for Daily Diggers to make your free pick on who is hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball.
No purchase necessary. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
So if you heard that big, or if you saw that big, what seemingly out of nowhere came a big wind gust, that was probably the Braves clubhouse giving a collective sigh of relief. Because that's the thing when it comes to an injury like an oblique. The initial news break is pretty not fun because especially when it comes to a key player, but there's always grades to these things. There's always levels to these things. And thankfully, Walt Weiss announced that when it came to Drake Baldwin, he is a grade 1 oblique strain. Now, I'm not a medical expert. I don't know exactly what that means as far as a recovery time, but it does seem to be that it's more of a week to week instead of multiple months type of outcome. And in this situation, we should all breathe a sigh of relief because that's the best outcome.
Yeah, grade 1 is what you want. Grade 1 is the least severe. It's I think the word Walt used was mild. He also kind of gave a big exhale and was like, we kind of got away with one year because it could have been a lot worse. So, they obviously went ahead and put him on the IL. So he's going to be out for 10 days. The question becomes how long after the 10-day IL stint is he ready to come back? I do think they're going to be conservative. I still wouldn't be surprised if they did 2 weeks, a lot like they did with Ronald. His hamstring ended up being not as bad as they thought, but still they took, they took their time getting him back. And, when you have the lead that they have, you can do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's still 2 weeks. Grade 1 though that's the best possible news. You got to stay away from the grade 3 stuff. The 2 months, 3 months. I remember Sean Murphy at the beginning of 2024 had a grade, I think the worst grade, and was out for 60 days. So, and that's what, I mean, when Scott and I did that show earlier, that's kind of what we were afraid of, because the play he got hurt on didn't look great. I actually thought it was going to be pretty severe. So grade 1 is great news, fantastic news. Braves could, Braves are owed some decent injury luck these days. So, with Ronnie's hamstring and now Drake's oblique, it's gone about as well as you could have hoped after those injuries in terms of the timeline they're going to be out. And now we'll just see how long it actually ends up being for Drake.
And the thing is that if it takes, if you could possibly get him back in 2 weeks, it takes 3 weeks, take a bit of time. I know the Phillies are surging right now, but just take a bit of time and be safer than not. Now, we do want to talk a bit about yesterday's game, and there's not really much to talk about. The Braves lost 12-0. No matter how good you are, you're going to have 5 or 7 of these games where they're just stinkers. And that's exactly what happened with the Braves. But I do think that one thing to, discuss a bit is the fact that J.R. Ritchie, you experimented with him for a month. It worked at times, but it just was pretty clear the stuff was not there as of right now. Let me take that back. The stuff I think is there, the control of it, the ability to be able to use it in the right spots at right times. He looked like at times he could get the job done doing it, but just was not consistent enough with it. It was the right call to send him down to the minors because it allows for you to be able to give him the seasoning that he needs while also giving a little bit more reliability to your staff.
Yeah, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this game. It was just a stinker. I didn't think Ritchie pitched. Scott and I talked about this today. I actually didn't think Ritchie pitched all that poorly. The defense yesterday was abysmal. I mean, I think there was like four or five misplays in the field that all ended up leading to runs. Like for the exact same money, that could have been a much different stat line for Ritchie. I don't think he got sent down specifically because of that game. I think he got sent down because, one, the totality of his work for about the last 3 weeks has kind of pointed to he probably needs a little more seasoning. His command is just not quite there. You can't walk 6 guys per 9 innings up here. And, I don't think it was just that game. I think it was a kind of a collection of things over the last 3 weeks. And then I do think the Braves really were starting to feel the pressure of having one less reliever on the team than they could, right? Running that 6-man rotation, having 7 relievers, it really started to bite them. And there were plenty of games where like it just felt like they had nobody available in the bullpen. And, I think the reason they switched back, I think the reason they sent somebody out of the rotation is because they wanted another reliever. I think the reason that somebody was J.R. Ritchie is because he didn't look quite ready. And, both can be true. And so, and Scott and I talked about this. It's not any sort of mark on the kid that he's not ready to be a full-on contributor for a World Series contending team at 22 years old. Like, it's normal. That's when Schwellenbach came up at 24, what he did that season was not normal. Like, most guys don't come up and just take a job and never lose it. Most people do what Ritchie did, and they come up and they struggle a little bit and they go back down, they learn something, they'll come back up and they're better for it. So, and Ritchie played a pretty important role trying to bridge the season, getting Strider back. Waldrop, Schwellenbach will be back, sometime in the summer. Like, it's not nothing what he did. It was a contribution that did help. And so I do want that on the record. And yeah, yesterday's game just, we can get into Aaron Bummer if you want to. Scott and I talked about it. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on the Aaron Bummer release.
Well, I do think that it's important to talk about the fact that Aaron Bummer, seeing his career kind of unravel here recently is not fun to see, right? Like when it came to Aaron Bummer's overall performance yesterday, it was just kind of the perfect scenario in which it's just not there anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's anything that he or Alex can predict. You don't expect for you to lose 2.5 or you hope that you don't lose 2.5 to 3 miles per hour off your fastball, right? And that's exactly what Aaron Bummer did. He's lost so much off his fastball, he's no longer effective. So I think the move needed to be made. And I think that, a couple of people observed, and I went back and watched the game a bit, and I saw it as well. You could see a moment where Aaron Bummer was just like, it's come to this. Like how did it come to this?
Yeah.
And I think the assessment that at the end of the day, if these athletes don't have what they used to, there's a lot of criticism, hate, things like that that's out there in social media. But it's also a reminder that they're human as well. And when you go through a struggle of being effective at once, and then potentially staring at the fact that your career could be in question, that has to be a moment that none of us want to face, right? So wish him the best. I think this was for the best for the team, but it just frustrating to see. One thing that I think is worth noting, though, I give best to Aaron Bummer, is you got to pick up reliability for this pitching staff. Like, that's just something over the past week that we've seen. And I think that it was either you or someone else noted, Didier Fuentes over the past 2 days has pitched back-to-back games. So we're really seeing that potential conversion to him being a reliever at the big league level this year. And I'm fine with it. If you can make it to where you can incrementally get him up to where he can be used in back-to-back days or in high leverage situations, his stuff can be a weapon. So I think that is one other positive that has come over the past 2 days.
Yeah. And that was important. And, getting him and Lopez to the point where Walt can just treat them like regular relievers, that alone will help the bullpen, on top of going back to having 8 relievers, not having 2 that are in the bullpen that have all these crazy restrictions and, can pitch like twice a week and never on back-to-back days. And, you just don't have enough roster spots for your pitchers to have multiple guys like that in your bullpen. So seeing Didier pitch back-to-back days yesterday and today, was huge. I do think that's a big deal for the bullpen. He looked good. He was still throwing 99 tonight. If anybody watched the game, it was moving like crazy. Like, it didn't seem to have any adverse effects in terms of his stuff. So, if that's a benchmark he had to clear for the team, I feel like he cleared it pretty well. Like, I feel like whatever they were hoping to see, he showed. And maybe like now he can just be a normal reliever. I don't know. We'll see. There's also a conversation about, like, now that Richie is out of the rotation, are they going to maybe put Fuentes back in? The fact that they've pitched Fuentes in back-to-back games with 1 inning each kind of tells me they're going to go reliever for now. Like, if they were thinking about stretching him back out, he wouldn't have just thrown back-to-back 1 inning outings. Like, they would be going the other direction where he's throwing 2 innings and then 3 innings and 4 innings. The fact that they keep shortening him up tells me, like, no, he's just going to be a reliever for right now. And I'm fine with that. Like, it's the best way to help the team. I do think he can help the team quite a bit as a reliever, especially as Kenley has regressed a bit. Like, he can be a weapon. So, yeah, it's been good to see.
Yeah, this team is still a lot of good. But I think that there still is opportunity to get better. And I'm going to be an advocate for them getting better sooner rather than later. A bit more on that in just a moment after a word from our partners.
Today's episode is sponsored by Fastenal, and Fastenal FMI vending technology, the ultimate tool management solution for the job site. Just like a clubhouse knows who's using which bat, Fastenal vending machines track tool usage in real time, so nothing walks off between shifts and everything gets returned at the end of the day. With built-in accountability and automated inventory control, Fastenal vending cuts down on loss, downtime, and those everyday tool headaches that slow teams down. Fastenal FMI vending technology. Keep your operation organized, efficient, and always ready for the next shift.
So, Stephen, what am I getting at? What do I think that the Braves need to do sooner rather than later for them to really continue to improve in this World Series of buzz situation that they find themselves in, which is a really good thing to be, a really good place to be? This team needs a controllable lefty masher, a part of a platoon that can clearly hit left-handed pitching well, someone that can play a reliable outfield, Doesn't have to be an excellent defender, but just someone that can play a reliable outfield, but also can hit lefties well. Because I think that's where the offense is going to struggle the most without Drake Baldwin, because of how good he is, how historically good he is against left-handed pitching. But this isn't a move just to kind of bridge the gap until Baldwin or Murphy are back. This is also a move to boost your bench. Like I know that we've talked about good stretches or good moments from like Jorge Mateo and Eli White, but I don't think that either of them bring to the table what a lefty basher could do for this lineup against left-handed pitching. Because we also know how much Walt Weiss likes to bringing in Mike Yastrzemski as well as Dominic Smith against right-handed pitching late in games. I threw a couple of names out there. Derek Heel of the White Sox, Matt Verlaine of the Tigers, Joe Adele, who would be my primo guy to go after with the Angels. I'd love to go get one of those guys. You can control him for a few years. Probably won't cost too much. You've got an emerging farm system. Probably some of these guys who are emerging are playing over their heads. They've got the best value that they're going to have. Right now, identify them. And part of having an emerging farm system is to have better than expected trade assets to go make moves. I think a lefty basher makes sense at the trade deadline, but probably could do better for the Braves right now, even if they have to overpay a little.
Yeah, I do think one more right-handed bat. And I said this in spring training. Like I felt like against left-handed pitching is where they were most vulnerable. And that was before I knew what Dom Smith was going to be, which helped the right-handed side even more, or against right-handed pitching even more. But I do think one more right-handed bat, one more lefty masher would kind of round out this team. You know, when Eli White comes back, he's going to obviously probably get a roster spot back. But I don't know that Eli White is the best fit because he's never been like a lefty man. Like he's not like a traditional platoon guy. And the Braves have enough defensive help with DeBon and Mateo on the roster. Like they don't need center field help the way you would typically want to keep Eli White around. And listen, I like Eli White, but if you're asking me, you know, outside of the pitching staff, obviously they could always use another reliever and even another starter. But on the position player side, like what's one position where I do think they could improve? There's a lefty on the mound and we've got I'm just throwing out a name. We got a Taylor Ward, we got a Joe Adele, we got a right-handed bat that can hit a homer, hit a double, that just has spent their career mashing lefties. And maybe their value is down because, their platoons on the other side aren't quite as good. Their team's not having as good a year. The Angels are having a miserable year. So I'm actually curious to see what they do. But yeah, I agree. And I've thought for a while that like the one more missing piece of this team is kind of a right-handed version of Dom Smith, right? Somebody who late in games, maybe he didn't start, but there's a lefty on the mound. You got a big spot. You can put a Joe Adele in. And I'm just using your name. I'm not sure it's going to be somebody that well known, but somebody who can really hit lefties and be okay with a bench role. When you're that side of the platoon, you're going to play less, right? There's just more right-handed pitching in baseball. So when you're the guy that mashes lefties, you're going to play less. And you got to be okay with that. You got to be a veteran that can still produce even though they're not playing all the time. So it's not the easiest role to find, but I do agree with you. I do think that's probably the area where I would say on the position player side, they could improve with one more right-handed bat that can mash lefties.
We'll see. I know that Alex, kind of is set and waited. At some point, you need to act. And I'm not saying this because the Braves are desperate for action or, that I feel that, they're going to significantly take a step back. Take advantage. Be aggressive of how good of a start you've had to go shore up a need for this team is kind of my point. Talked about the good and the bad. It's been a bit more action-packed to start the week than I think many of us had anticipated. But then you look at tomorrow's game, and it's the ultimate compliment to a player who is a true ace. Chris Sale is on the mound. And that always is a breath of fresh air and a sigh of relief for Braves country. He'll be on the mound. Chris Sale wants to have a strong performance. I think that he is ready to put together a stretch where he's really going to start to secure some really good looks at Cy Young. I think he wants to get that second Cy Young in a Braves uniform this year. He's got a really good opportunity to do it, especially going through a tough stretch like he recently did in terms of opponents. I think the job is there for Chris Sale to get done for us to at least tie or get the chance to win this series, and I think he's going to deliver tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely advantage Braves tomorrow night. It's obviously Chris Sale, and then Miami's got, I think his name's Jansen Junk is his name. He's had a decent year. He's not, I mean, he's not Chris Sale. And so Acuña's back, Sale on the mound. Like the Braves should be pretty easy favorites in that game. Now it's baseball, anything can happen, but that is certainly a spot where you would expect to, at least guarantee a split of the 4-game series. And then Thursday is a fantastic matchup. It's Spencer Strider versus Sandy Alcantara. So, that's probably a push 'em. That's probably a pick 'em game. The Braves offense is better, but Miami's offense has been scrappy. Obviously, they just scored 12 runs a couple days ago. So, again, it's one game. But I do like, I think the Braves are set up to, at the very least, split the series. If you can go win the next two and get out of here with a series win after losing you lose the first game 12-0 and still get out of here with a series win. That would be pretty exceptional baseball over the last 3 days, especially with losing Drake Baldwin right after. So advantage Braves tomorrow. Thursday's game, probably more of a pick 'em, but a chance to at least tie this 4-game series and an outside chance to win it.
Yeah, and you would love to win this series with your two best going tomorrow before you get to Washington. I know it'll be in Atlanta, but you're facing, the NL's top scoring team in Washington. And you're going to be throwing arms that aren't as good as Sale and Strider. The offense is going to have to come alive. So if the pitching wants to take over the next 2 games, the offense come back this weekend, I think that'll be a recipe for success. I apologize for my voice. It's decided just to take a break, but it'll be back soon. Can't thank you enough for joining us here on the Hammer Territory Podcast. For Stephen Tolbert, I'm Shawn Coleman. Have a great week. Go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory Podcast.